Welcome to this podcast, Simple Talks, where we talk about operational excellence, quality management, continuous improvement. And this is a special podcast because we are invited by Six Sigma conference in Sao Paulo, in Brazil. I was there 3 years ago as a speaker, but today, this year, I'm not be able to attend. So they asked me to provide a podcast about Lean and Six Sigma in the digital era. And therefore, I have Juan Gauki as a guest. We will talk in the next couple minutes, 45 minutes actually, about Lean Six Sigma in the digital era. Juan, welcome.
Hi, Dick. Thank you very much for inviting me.
So how long has it been ago that we first were introduced by Professor van Houten at the University of Twente, it was?
Yeah, you're right. We were introduced by Professor Van Houten in the year 2016, actually.
16, okay.
It was somewhere in the summer. And I remember because I told Professor Van Houten when I was working as assistant professor in his research group that I was also very interested in doing something with the industry. Mm-hmm. And that I would like to work as a consultant. And he told me, well, I know the right guy for you. And then he organized the meeting and we got to know each other.
Yes, I can remember when that time also Industry 4.0, Smart Industry 4.0 was introduced. And we were working in that field at that time. It was then 8 years ago. And a lot of things that should happen, but did not really happen. But now we are 7 years later. And you see the things that we talked about at that time are really happening.
Yeah. Finally, it's starting to happen.
Yes.
Indeed, I remember when I was working with Professor Van Houten, we were trying also to engage a lot with local industry to get them joining the train of digitalization, but it was very difficult. It was very difficult. Companies were not actually doing that. Then together with you, we tried also to help companies with their digitalization journeys. We created a very nice workshop. I don't know if you remember that in a canvas.
Yeah.
But it was still very difficult. And now, 7 years later, we finally start to see that companies are really embracing Industry 4.0. So
yeah, that's what we will talk about in this podcast, about Lean Six Sigma in a digital era. So new tools, new techniques, a new approach, but still combining the Lean Six Sigma approach. So in this Congress, most people are familiar with Lean and Six Sigma, but maybe just short, can you explain the difference between Lean and Six Sigma?
Okay. I see Lean, yes, as the mindset and philosophy and set of tools that help you with get rid of all of the friction in your company. By friction, I mean all of the things that are keeping your company from moving at the maximum possible speed, and using as less fuel as possible. It's like a car, So if you design a car, you want it to be very aerodynamic, such that it doesn't use too much energy. Well, that is Lean. Lean is about making sure that the company is using all of the resources in the most optimal way. I see Six Sigma as the loop that is there to make sure that the products and the services are of the highest possible quality. And quality means that the desired requirements are met. So that means that there's no variation. So Six Sigma is about managing variation. Lean is about making optimal processes.
Okay, that's a good summary, I think, yes. Okay, so these methods are how old? Very old.
I mean, they're very old, yes.
So, to my opinion, Lean started with the belts from Ford, which is from my head 1913, so it's more than 100 years old.
Yeah.
So más o menos in that direction.
Yes, sure.
So and Six Sigma is more. Yeah, when was Six Sigma introduced?
Well, I think it was introduced somewhere
87
in the
something
90s.
Like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the 90s. Introduced as a formal methodology. But if we take a look at most of the specific statistical methods that are used in Six Sigma, I mean, they have been there for a long time as well.
Yes, statistics has been applied in manufacturing, of course, also probably 100 years. So that was, let's say, second, third industrial revolution, and now we are in the fourth industrial revolution, and a lot changed. We talked about this in the introduction. About 7 years ago, it started. Where are we now?
Where are we now? Wow, difficult to answer. According to some people, we are actually already in the fifth industrial revolution, but I think it's too much, of a term.
We can have an industrial revolution every 5 years.
Yeah.
Normally it takes like 50 years for a digital revolution, but of an industrial revolution. But whatever, we are more than 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I think that two key things have happened. When we started talking about Industry 4.0, some 7-8 years ago, maybe even a bit longer. I know that we were talking a lot about IoT systems, Internet of Things, etc. But the systems were not that mature. There were like many different platforms, but they were actually very difficult to use. Also, many companies didn't have like ERP systems fully implemented or well implemented. So the ecosystem was not ready to really start implementing and scaling up digital tools. Right now, we are in a total different stage. Many companies have ERP systems that are up and running. Data is in many cases, still many cases not, but in many cases, data is also well structured. There are good databases, so data is available. Mm-hmm. We have seen also that IT systems have had a large evolution, like for example, IoT. I remember that some 10 years ago, IoT systems that were available were very much connected or developed by the companies also developing hardware, mm-hmm. and nowadays we have IoT systems that are much more agnostic, let's say, to manufacturing companies of production system itself. So I think we are now at a stage in which both the platforms as well as the data infrastructure in companies is at the level in which it is much more easy to start really, taking advantage of it and digitalizing processes.
Yeah, can you tell us about an example? I know you have worked a couple of years in Spain on IoT platforms for hospitals. Can you tell me a little bit about what was that about and how do you see that it progressed in the last couple of years?
Okay. Yes, going back in time, when I was living in Spain, I was working for the healthcare industry. And I remember that one of the key characteristics of the market back then was that IoT platforms were all connected to medical device manufacturers. Yeah. So I won't mention any name, but each one of these huge medical device manufacturers would have their own IoT platform. And this IoT platform would therefore not be agnostic. So you would have to buy the equipment of that of that manufacturer in order to be able to use their IoT platform. And what we were doing was actually bringing an agnostic IoT platform to the market that was able to communicate with different devices. And by doing that, we were able to really get data from all different points in the hospitals, combine them, and then translate them into dashboards or any kind of information facility that would help doctors and nurses making decisions. Okay. And this that I'm describing now for the healthcare has also occurred in the same way in manufacturing. Mm-hmm. In manufacturing, we are also now we also have many tools available that are agnostic, that can be connected, using different kind of APIs to different equipment and therefore making information available to pretty much everybody in the manufacturing floor.
Yeah, can you explain agnostic a little bit? You mean it's available for everybody from different software tools? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, by agnostic, I mean the following. Look, if you have an equipment, a piece of equipment, that equipment will have some kind of protocol through which it can exchange data with the outside world. Okay. Yeah, it will exchange data with the outside world using this protocol. These protocols can often be only read by an IoT system that has the knowledge on that protocol to be able to translate the information. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the thing about agnostic systems is that they have drivers that have protocols of many different devices, And by having them, they can kind of speak, to any to a device of any brand.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I understand. So this will really help to get insight in the logistical process and the quality of the process, of course. So it helps Lean Six Sigma as a methodology to get faster, more efficient, and better quality. Is that what it is about?
Yes, it's definitely about that. You can think, for example, maintenance. I think maintenance is a great topic. If you are able to capture the operational data, of a CNC machine, for example, yes, you can use that data to better predict when that machine is going to fail.
Yeah.
And by doing that, make sure that you can plan much better what is the moment in which you're going to perform maintenance of that machine. By doing that, you can improve the OEE of that specific machine. And by doing that to many different machines in your manufacturing plant, you can increase the OEE of the whole manufacturing floor. So this is one example on how getting data directly from machine can help you improve your productivity.
Yeah, and that's both for Lean and Six Sigma approach. So Lean is more logistical data, and Six Sigma is more the quality data.
Well, I would say Lean is rather about processes. So in the case of maintenance, that would have a profound impact on the productivity of your processes. So that would be more Lean. But you can, I think that from a Lean point of view, I would choose to talk about different types of systems than IoT. Yeah, I think that from a Lean point of view, what we want to do is make sure that processes are efficient, so that there are no errors in the processes, but that processes can go at the maximum possible speed. Yeah. And for this kind of systems, I think that the technologies that are the best suited are technologies that like BPA, business process automation tools, like RPA, like robotic process automations, and nowadays we're talking also about APA, which is agentic process automation systems. So I think that the IoT platforms would be more in line with reducing variation, while these kind of automation platforms would be more useful for Lean purposes and making sure that processes can be speeded up.
Yeah, we'll come back to these sophisticated tools in a moment. But going back in time, all these, let's say, old original tools like 5S and standard meetings and putting post-its on a wall, on brainstorming. What about those things? Will they be replaced with all these new techniques, or will these tools will still stand?
Wow.
What is your opinion on that one?
My opinion is that they will still continue.
Yeah.
They will definitely continue, but they will be supported by digital technologies. For example, stand-up meetings, week starts, day starts. All these kind of meetings use like a performance board. Yeah, we used to use paper-based performance boards, and actually still many companies are using them. But you can use now technologies, for creating dashboards and have your digital board.
Yeah.
So the board in itself is not changing, but the fact that we're not using a paper-based board, but a digital board is the one thing that is enabled by digitalization.
Yes, I can see that one, because I've seen also people using their phones with their 5S audit or Gemba walk to make pictures of things that do not belong or is outside the standard, as we say, and then post them to the stand-up meeting board. That's a good example, I guess.
Yeah.
So going back to these sophisticated tools, the last couple of years we were all, last 2 years, I guess, with ChatGPT. It's new. Everybody thinks AI is ChatGPT, which is of course not the case. I think people in the here know about that. When was AI coming into the picture of operational excellence? So when did AI first emerge in industry to make processes better and smoother?
I think AI has been there for quite a long time. Well, actually, my master thesis was done using AI.
Yes.
But yeah, I created a control system for keeping the right quality of laser welding processes of unstable materials. Then I remember that the traditional control theories couldn't be used. So I decided to go for a fuzzy based control system. And then this fuzzy system needed to be trained somehow. So I was already using genetic algorithms, to train neural networks. To train the fuzzy controller, and then use the fuzzy controller to control the quality of the welding process. And actually, it worked very nicely, very nicely. And we were already talking about AI at that time. So that was AI back then.
Yeah, well, AI already started somewhere in the 50s, but the computers were, of course, not ready to deal with that, and now they are. So
yes.
Yeah.
So then, if I go now back in time, some 12 years ago, 11 years ago, I remember that we were working also on a use case project at Apollo of Redestein back then, and we were trying to see how can we use the data that they have available to make predictive models to help them improve also the quality of their processes. They had a lot of data, and we were just playing around with the data to see what could we get out of them.
And there was not a normal logistic regression or a linear regression. That was real AI approach, let's say.
It was really, machine learning. It was really creating also neural networks to try to fit, let's say, factors with outputs, and create a model that would be different to the typical regression models that were used by them. So predictive analytics, let's call it that. It was using predictive analytics.
Yeah, why did it took then like 10, 15 years before finally these tools are in the toolkit of a black belt to apply?
I can speculate on that. I don't have the answer, but I can speculate on that. I think that one possible cause is due to the fact that data was very scattered in companies, unorganized. Enterprise application systems were not being used as they should, so the whole data infrastructure was just not like well in place.
Okay.
So I think that is one of the key reasons, and I think that there has been quite a good evolution, let's say, in that direction. So data is much better structured now, etc. And I think that the second one is that tools were not as friendly as they are today. Yeah, for example, a Minitab. Yeah, you have in Minitab the module predictive analytics. Yeah, the module is very simple. The model gives you the opportunity to use 4 of the most used predictive analytics tools that are, let's say, in the market. And it's just a matter of pressing some buttons. You have to have some knowledge about how predictive analytics works, of course, but then you can very easily use that kind of.
You don't have to be a data scientist anymore.
You don't have to be a data scientist, no. So that is, and the tools are available for doing that.
I've seen for a long time, that's just two groups. You have to, on the one side, you have the green and the black belts, the Lean Six Sigma people, most with a business background or mechanical engineering or whatever technological study. And on the other side, you have the data scientists that know how to work with Python and programming and those kind of things. These two worlds are now coming together slowly, I hope.
Yes, they're coming together for sure.
Yeah.
And actually, what you're mentioning is very important, because I was totally forgetting the third reason why I think that it has taken so much time for this to get running, and that is the people.
Mm-hmm.
The mindset, the knowledge. IT managers are much more aware now of operations, and I think that people in operations are much more aware of IT.
That's
concept.
a good one. Yeah.
And I do see that companies where operations have very limited knowledge on digitalization and AI, for example, those are companies where the digital transformation is going extremely slowly. While when the knowledge is shared, then you can see that they really make a lot of progress. So it's very important also for people in operations, not necessarily to become IT experts, but to really understand and learn which are the main mechanisms, tools, technologies driving the digital transformation.
Okay. So let's come back to ChatGPT, because we were all introduced with ChatGPT about a year ago, and everybody thinks that's AI, and it makes nice texts and graphs. But how can we use this in industry? We're not making text and graphs in industry, but how can we use tools like ChatGPT in an operational process?
All right. Very good question. Because there are so many different ways we can use it that I really have to pick up a good one. First, ChatGPT or LLM-based tools, yes, they support the development of something called agents. Yeah, and an agent is a specific artificial intelligence tool based on LLMs that can produce models. Work. Yeah, so you can make sure that he always will produce a given output. Yeah, when he gets triggered by a certain input. Yeah, so only that this thing is like very, very smart, you know, and can actually do work that some humans would actually do, you know. So how can you use it? You can, for example, use it to analyze reports. Okay. Yeah, you can create agents that are connected to, for example, your email account, and each type you get a certain type of email, they will automatically read the email, make an analysis, and create a report out of that email. So you can use it to automate many administrative processes. Another application, especially for industry, that is very interesting is for quality management and quality engineering. You can create agents that use as background knowledge all of the work instructions and processes that are in your knowledge management system. Mm-hmm. And then if you
they're all scattered around all these SharePoint servers, exactly, etc., all over the place.
Yeah, so you connected, to this SharePoint location where you have all of your quality management documents. Yeah, and then this agent can become your best assistant in making sure that you always follow the procedures as described in your quality management system. And the nice thing is that you can actually interact then with this agent. You can talk with the agent, can you help me with following the procedure for requesting a new material? And then he will tell you exactly the steps that you have to follow. So it's really having like an expert human on the loop that is using all of the expert knowledge that you have created in your company.
Okay, yeah. Is it difficult to make such an agent?
It is not difficult.
It's not difficult, no. But it's also, I see that not many people are doing that currently. Is that something that will happen in the next couple of years, that it's become normal to do these things? Do we have special departments to create our agents?
Well, definitely yes. Yeah, that is one of the things that the IT departments will have to also develop. Not all of the IT departments are indeed running at the same speed when it comes to deployment of AI technology. But yes, this is a new function also of IT departments. They are not difficult to create. Agents are in itself not very difficult to create. You do need some experience. You do need to understand how they operate. You do need to make sure that they are really following specific processes, that they are not guessing based on internet sources, how to proceed. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that they are difficult to create.
What about the regular green and black belt trainings with curriculum about explaining the principles, the value stream mapping, the ways to the first time right, etc., etc.? Still valid, yes, but how do these new techniques and tools get a place in this, in this modern training? Let's say the new green belt trainings and the black belt trainings for the next coming years. How do you see that? What tools should a green belt really able to apply?
Well, I will make a differentiation between Lean and Six Sigma. Yes, and I repeat again, Lean focusing on processes that are very efficient, Six Sigma reducing variation. So from a Lean perspective, I think that green belts and black belts should know what is a BPA, business process automation. They should know also some tools, for implementing BPAs. Yeah, they should know, for example, about the Power Apps, of Microsoft. Yeah. But Zapier, there are many different tools that you can use for this. They should also know what RPA is, how to implement API. They should have seen RPAs Maybe they're not the ones that are going to implement it, but they definitely should know in detail, how it works and what kind of processes can be automated by that. And APAs, these agentic process automation systems. So they should know the tools, and they should also have experience with a number of technologies, not necessarily because they will implement it, because they need to understand how they work to be able to implement them together with IT in the processes in their companies. The thing about these tools is that they can really improve the speed of processes. Yeah, and that is also kind of what Lean is about, reducing friction. When we move towards Six Sigma, Six Sigma is about reducing variation, as you very well know. But reducing variation in the context of AI is about taking a look into the future. So I have variation. What do I think will happen with variation in the future? How can I predict variation? So I think that green belts and black belts should know about predictive analytics. They should definitely know about predictive analytics.
Even the green belts, or also only
even
the
the
black
green
belts?
belts. I think even the green belts should have also some basic knowledge about predictive analytics, but also know how to use the transfer functions that are coming from predictive analytics to help them predict the future and take actions in different future scenarios.
Do you think they still need to know the formulas that are behind that, or is that too complicated for these kind of tools?
I think the formulas
they can press the buttons, of course, but what do they need to know and understand what goes behind the button?
I think they need to know the mechanisms, not necessarily the detail of all the mathematics, but they do need to know the mechanisms.
Yeah.
So what is the main logic behind the way that for example, a tree net algorithm, is making some kind of prediction.
Yeah. Okay, so there will be a whole new bunch of tools for these green belts and black belts. It's already a lot, but there will be new additional tools. Is there something we can get rid of that we don't need anymore in the green and black belt, or do you think it will be on top of what we already need to know and what we are teaching green and black belts nowadays?
Wow. I think on top.
Yeah, I'm afraid as well. I knew the answer because I think you're right. It need to be on top. But it's already a lot. I mean, if we see about like 15, 20 years ago, you were either doing or Lean or Six Sigma. So people already had Lean tools or Six Sigma tools. Then about 15 years ago, it was combined. It become Lean and Six Sigma, so it will be on top. Now we have Lean and Six Sigma and digital tools.
Yep.
So it will not be getting more easy, or will it? No.
Well, no.
But we still call them green and black belts, I guess, or not? I mean,
well, maybe we can change the terms,
Yeah.
Green belts 4.0.
Yeah,
and black belts 4.0.
Maybe. Let's do that.
Because they definitely need to learn some of these kind of tools.
Okay, come back to the organizations. You were mentioning some organizations doing IoT, and others are still looking into that. And these tools, they're talking about it, but they don't know where to start. So you have developed a DTMM, the Digital Transformation Maturity Model.
Yes.
So it's on the screen right now. It has a lot of tools and techniques on there. Can you explain me a little bit how a company develops from very low maturity to the high maturity, and how much time it takes? I guess you cannot go from level 1 to level 5 in a couple months, not even a couple years probably.
No, and probably you don't want either to do that.
You will lose the people.
Yeah, yes, also. Well, the thing was the following. As in all of the years that I've been working with digital transformation, one of the things, there are two things that I had to struggle a lot with. One of the things was understanding all of these terminologies that IT people would come with that I didn't know, and also making sense of them in a system way, So how do all of these concepts create an IT system? I had a lot of difficulty with understanding that. And the second one was, where do we start? What do we need to make the next step? So these two things, going through my mind, were the ideas that ended up in developing this model. And the idea of this model is to help organizations in understand that the digital transformation needs to be built, in a certain order in order for it to be successful. And basically, the first level is about having data that is well organized, that is also being created in the right way using, for example, the right enterprise application systems. Then when you have all of this data well structured, then you can immediately start improving your productivity by just using that data with tools like BPAs, RPAs, etc.
But they're still talking about level 1 now? Or?
No, excuse me. Now I'm talking about level 2. Okay. So the first level is about having the data well structured and in the right place. The second level is about using that data to start making productivity improvements. I call that level productivity boosting. Because it boosts productivity and it's not that difficult to implement. And then we go into the third level, and the third level is about improving the prediction capabilities of your company, incorporating tools like, for example, predictive analytics, but also IoT. And when you have that in place, then you can move forward to the next fourth level. And the fourth level is really about creating systems that are virtual and that can eventually also self-steer themselves.
Yeah, digital twins, those kind of systems.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that is the idea. So it tries to answer two questions. Which are the main IT-related concepts I should know if I want to implement a digital transformation in my company? And secondly, how do all of these systems build together, to form a harmonic digital ecosystem?
Okay, good. So many companies have a lot to do and a long way to go, because most of them are still at level 1 probably or not. How do you see that? Do you see companies that are already acting on level 3 and 4?
Yes, we do see companies. I think in my experience, companies in the chemical sector, chemical industry, they are at very advanced levels. Also, the nature of the chemical industry, I think, makes it not easier, but
they are used to the data and go on process steering and feedback loops and all those kind of things.
All these kind of things.
Understand.
Yes. But in discrete manufacturing, this, of course, much more difficult to implement.
Yeah. The automotive industry, what do you think about that?
Well, in the automotive industry, as long as I can remember also from my own experience, they were quite advanced in the implementation of all these kind of tools, especially OEMers. Some suppliers as well, OEMers at a very high level of advancement. I mean, the whole German industry was very advanced. The whole industry 4.0 somehow also originated in Germany. So in the automotive industry, this is at a very advanced level.
What about the governments and those kind of processes?
I don't have that much experience, with them, but I do think that there's a lot of productivity improvement that could be gotten from implementing this kind of tools. Okay. And I have the feeling that they are not being implemented that much yet. Okay. That's the feeling I have.
So there's a lot to do there.
There's a lot to do there. And actually, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit there. A lot of low-hanging fruit. I think, for example, BPAs. There are commercial systems available for implementing BPAs and RPAs. They're not difficult to implement, and there are many processes that you can easily automate and immediately get a lot of productivity by doing that. Yes. For example, if I may take the freedom to talk a little bit about that, but I always think that many governmental organizations deal with requests, and the requests are filled in by forms, are filling in some kind of forms. Yeah. These forms,
digital forms, also.
Digital forms, exactly. So these forms need to be processed, and in many cases, these forms had to be read by somebody that will analyze them, and based on that, get to a final conclusion. But agentic systems can be used to perform some of these analyzing tasks before a human does it, and then the human would only get like the forms that really need an advanced degree of knowledge, let's say, to really analyze properly.
Okay. Very interesting, Juan. There's a lot to do. Final question: how do you see the future of this? Do you have a tip for organizations to make the next step? So it's actually 2 questions. How do you see the future in a couple of years from now?
I see. Well, a couple of years from now, I think that most companies will not be very far away. I hope that they will start, engaging more in these kind of things, but especially SMEs are not moving at a very high speed. And if we look further away in the future, I think it's going to be a future where AI systems and humans are collaboratively and continuously working together to keep organizations running.
Yeah. So the tip will be?
Engage, start now.
Just start now.
Just start,
yeah,
yes.
That's a good tip. So the LSSA, as the Lean Sigma Academy, which is working together with Exin on certification, also launched a new book, Lean Six Sigma in the Digital Era. The title is in Dutch here, but it's also in English available. It's a guideline for green and black belts with dealing all of these new tools and techniques. So I can only advise everybody to take a look at those kind of tools and maybe this book. And I would like to thank all the participants in Sao Paulo listening to this podcast. And I hope you get value from this and start using and learning about all these new digital tools. So Juan, thank you very much for this inspiring talk about all these new digital techniques. And if you want to learn more about Lean Six Sigma trainings, you can go to Exin, also about certification. And we talk later, Juan, on a different topic in this interesting digital world. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much, Dick.